Yeah. Well, there was no consensus. We were just trying to avoid the crowding out of people.
For sure.
People are saying that they're not being let in. So I'm trying to find that balance because today it's on the topic to discuss today.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to add on the agenda, polar bear, what do you hear? It's an awesome book. The Eric Carle books, they're awesome.
Yeah, all Eric Carle books are all Dr. Seuss books.
Dr. Seuss, yeah, and he's got Dr. Seuss it too, right?
Yeah, I see that right behind you. Yeah, it's quite a library you got there, Josh.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep up with Thomas's library.
Yeah. That would be hard to do.
对，你也可以加入。Hello.
I just pasted the agenda there.
Is somebody live streaming you? Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, Dar.
所有有带那个点 EOS 的都要成功。
Hey, Robert, do you have the live stream up?
Yeah, the live stream's up now.
I didn't hear what you just said. You want to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down? You're muffled.
我帮好那个，你看他们在最贵的时候给人家开放点一个账号150。
Josh, you are recording the call?
Yes, correct.
I made Josh host. I'll have to leave a bit before 10 on EST time. He will leave.
我应该发会议链接。
Yeah, there is a live stream already.
这个直播会议链接，没有，他们要看这个自个儿去看，我们就不文字直播了。这样不好让你。我里好看。
It's so quiet. Who's the master of ceremonies today?
Yeah, I just muted everyone, that's why.
Yeah, that's good. Who's the master of ceremonies?
Can we mute the microphone?
I'm sorry?
It's so noisy, like, can we mute the microphone?
Yeah.
Are you ready to go, Matthew?
Yes, let's go. So hello everyone. Today Liquid EOS has proposed themselves to do the roll call. So please enter your VPN position in the chat. They are also taking care of being the scribes. So thank you for this. And EOS Detroit is taking care of the live stream.
Matthew, can I sorry to interrupt? Can I say something about the scribing? We're happy to do the call minutes, but is there a purpose to do it if the call is being recorded and live stream? Is there a need to sit and do all the scribing as well?
I think there is. It's easier to review when you're on the bus, right? Quick minutes.
Okay, fair. So so is that it? We've decided we're going to keep the scribe going.
I would second what Alex said. I think that having the written version is also good. It's a little clearer, a little bit faster for us to review as well, to see if maybe something else was missed or different.
No problem at all. You guys got it.
But just to be clear, Darcy, you've been doing it for the past few meetings. It doesn't need to be always you. Like you were so kind to propose yourself. But if anyone wants to do it, please raise your hand going forward. All right. So I would suggest we start right away with number one, which is proposed, which is something that we started discussing last time, but was interrupted, and we had agreed that we would bring it to the table again. So Luke, could you please go ahead?
Sure. Yeah. I did update it as well, if you can go ahead and check that out, and I tried to copy in Dan's comments for his perspective on the primary purpose of these calls should be to educate and get feedback, deal with issues, come up with the impact on the network. And he talked about how it should deal with bug fixes, patching, system contracts, security concerns, and to some extent extensions, questions about governance and things like that. So I was encouraged from my perspective. He seemed to reiterate what my perspective was on the purpose of these calls should be about specifically our job technically as block producers. And when I look at and to kind of further extend that, I think those should be based on also the will of the users, the token holders who we're responsible to. When I look at the agenda today as an example, much of it appears to be bureaucratic stuff that block producers are very passionate about, but I'm not necessarily sure that they correlate directly with what users are passionate about right now. There's no mention of the RAM markets or the new system contract that Dan suggested yesterday, or the new constitution that Block One has talked about. These are things that we see everyone in the community talking about passionately, but we as VPs aren't discussing it on this call. And so it's just, again, it kind of reiterates, if we don't have an action item for this call, if we don't leave this call with action items that directly relate to our job as block producers, technically, then I'm still a little uncertain what the point is. And I guess further, when we're talking about things that aren't related to on-chain actions, there's no enforcement. So we keep bringing up things that we've already discussed without a clear indication of, what's the takeaway, what's the enforcement, what's the action item, how are we going to agree to anything if it doesn't relate to something on-chain? There's essentially no mechanism that I know of to say, okay, now we're going to hold you accountable to something that we agreed to on a call. So I'm still asking a question to the group. What is the we have Dan's perspective now. I've voiced my perspective. I'd like to know what other people's perspective of what the point of this call is, because even in the last call it ended with someone talking about a conference, and essentially I feel like that will be the norm if we continue this way, where people will promote what they're doing and what they're up to, not necessarily things that we have to coordinate as block producers together to accomplish. So that's kind of my thought. I'm confused on how we even go. Where do we even go from there? I've voiced my thought, but now what? How do we agree on what is the point of these video calls, these live stream calls, to then come to a conclusion? So I guess I open the floor at this point, or how do we want to?
I agree with most of it, Luke. There are some things that are really missing. All the tech aspect, the pseudo contract we need to put in, all these things is, in my opinion, in this call, and it's not there right now. So there's a little disconnect. And I agree with the conference stuff. It doesn't relate here. Like, please don't do that. Otherwise, we're going to take up that call. It's going to be useless in the end, right? So the tradition must be, because we have the document, but we're building, what we're doing. Those are traditions we're building, right? So it's also the culture we're instilling into these calls. So where to go from here?
The solution might be for the upcoming weeks, Luke Alexander, to just give a lot of, and anyone else who's concerned, give a lot of scrutiny to the agenda document. It gets posted and it's open for anybody to edit, so you can put criticisms in that agenda document. You can suggest that we cover pseudo or whatever else. I think that's the place to work out the agenda.
Right.
It also might be helpful for, folks if they're joining on the live stream, for the first time, or folks that are new to EOS, to understand that this call, the history of this was originally to get the network launched. And so probably what's happening a little bit here is that, we were just used to that because we were all just running 1,000,000 miles per hour trying to get this network launched. And this was the mechanism, the Zoom call was the mechanism by which we coordinated with one another. So we were in that sort of whatever you want to call it, routine, if you will. And that's probably a little bit of what we're still experiencing right now. We were just used to that, and so we continued it forward. So Luke, Alex, Roman, agree with all of what you said. The purpose of these should really be focused on, frankly, technical aspects and making sure coordination among the block producers are, upgrading software. If there's a critical security fix we need to address. These should not be meetings to sort of advertise conferences. They shouldn't be meetings to sort of talk about whatever your pet project is. You can do that via the internet or Steam or the blockchain itself. So anyway, I just wanted to provide that sort of context. And also when and if we get to the traditions proposal, that proposal was more to streamline the calls related to security and those sorts of issues. It wasn't meant to have everyone just talk about whatever they'd like to. It was really just to streamline and make these calls more efficient.
Thank you all. I appreciate that input, and I would like more input too. When I put that document out there, I was hoping we could add more to the pros and cons list, that people could suggest, things I hadn't thought of, because I don't want to be the only person giving a perspective on this call. And so some of the things I've heard since then relate to, this call kind of being a place for people to look like they're important, like, look, we're a block producer that matters, and other people who maybe aren't in the top want to show up and have the be known as well. And I start to feel like that's not, again, the point of these calls. And so I appreciate that support, but I'm also interested, does anyone disagree? Is there anyone who thinks that these calls should be more than just what Dan and myself and others are suggesting? If not, I feel like we can kind of agree to this. And then if we agree to this, should we then make a statement on change? Should we use decent Twitter or something, just some message to say, hey, we agree to this. And if we don't do it, we want to be held accountable by our token holders. Something along those lines. So if we come up with something in these calls, then we can actually be held accountable to them, because we said, yes, we voluntarily agreed to follow this pattern of how
it's a culture. It's a question of culture. Like, we don't need to be kept accountable because we make some calls. I want to be free to make calls when I want, right? But I want the culture to be, we make efficient use of those things. So I appreciate, the refinement of your analysis, so we can all put in our heads, what we should focus on. And I think it resounds in everyone's minds, right? Because probably with the conference statement, we all went rolling our eyes. When we say it out loud, then the next time people won't do that, and we'll enculturate that better use of everyone's time. But accountability I don't think it serves here, right? We don't need accountability, we need a good culture.
I think, Luke, where I most agree with what you said, and I think it echoes a lot of what other things other people have been saying, is also the first point that we find in the con portion of your text, of the document that you shared. And it's and I've seen this, and I spoke about this yesterday as well, is the spirit and intent of DPoS. And you've mentioned it multiple times on the calls. In a delegated proof of stake protocol type chain like we're running right now, it feels very counterintuitive to get on a call all together twice a week and talk about stuff, when really what should be happening is, on a tech point of view, we should get together because we have no choice. We have to resolve certain things in a very efficient manner. So we need that way to get together and that venue to be able to do that. But otherwise, the block producers and block producer candidates or standby block producers are all separate entities that should be very independent and should be doing things independently for their community. So they listen to what the community tells them, and they go ahead and they do this. And I can see what's going on right now with depending on where the rankings are. We can definitely see that the people that are lower in the rankings are taking more risk in proposing things to the community and just doing it. EOS Nation has been doing this. And then the people that are a little bit higher in the rankings tend to rock the boat a little bit less. And I think that that's what DPoS is meant to do. That's how it's designed to work, right? But then when we get on these calls like this, and we don't move forward on items because we're waiting to see what other people are doing, we're really then just becoming again this one centralized thing in a way, and that's very scary. If we keep going in that direction, I'm not saying that that's what's happening for everything, but definitely I think that's what you're trying to echo as a sentiment, and I definitely agree with that sentiment, that getting on these calls twice a week just to get on these calls at some point is in a way dangerous for DPoS.
Yeah, I don't fully agree with that. You know, I'm in a race against you, and even though we're talking, I'm still in a race against you, right? So it's not going to become centralized. We all have our own drive, and you know, we're different entities. I'm not with you somehow, but we are.
We're only getting on these calls for no purpose. That's all I'm saying.
No purpose makes no sense.
On these calls
just because
for
no
very
purpose.
few purpose is not. These calls, the purpose of these calls, and it seems to be like that seems to be the sentiment, is a lot of it should be tech focused.
It should,
not just blah blah focused.
Yeah. So
and right now, a lot of it has been blah blah. But like Rick said as well, part of it is just because we were doing it for the launch, right? And now we got used to it, and we've refined our system as well. I mean, the agenda, the administrative portion of setting up these calls, the live stream and everything. Now I feel like we've got this set up. We've got a really good way of doing this. We could potentially reduce the frequency for when we have actual items that are very important tech side. And it wouldn't have necessarily to be, because now we've got a system in place. It wouldn't necessarily have to be Mondays and Thursdays just because. Unless we have a reason to, sure.
I have a proposition. You know, when people feel that these discussions are off topic regarding what we think should be happening on this chat, either in your video you put a post-it, or you flag a blue post-it, or you type in the channel, okay? If we get to that culture, we're gonna get a lot more focus. So we can try in this call, maybe someone is gonna lift a flag right now, because maybe we're done on that subject, right?
Yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, we're 15 minutes in. I don't want to take up all the time on this, but I feel like there's an encouragement and a growing consistency of these should be tech focused. These should not be promoting your own projects, and these should be have action items really for block producers to take away from the meeting and say we have to accomplish something. So I'm currently somewhat satisfied that we agree with Dan's perspective on what these calls are about. We're echoing that same sentiment. So I'm comfortable continuing, and let's hold each other accountable, starting with the agenda. So that when someone submits something on the agenda, we could say, hey, really, does that need to happen here? And then we can go from there. It shouldn't be based on just, you know, who got to the agenda item first. But that's my perspective. I think it goes right in nicely to the traditions document if we want to go to that next, unless someone still has something more we should discuss.
Let's continue on.
All right.
Okay.
Can we go to the traditions?
Sure, and let me share my screen.
Do we want a translation?
Oh yeah, sure. That's
My internet connection is really bad today, so I missed out parts of it. I don't know if there's any other Chinese VP can do the translation.
OK， 我来简单讲。哦，你讲，Sheldon，你讲，我听得不是很清楚。
And that was that.
OK，I will translate。刚才他们讲的一个问题就是说，是不是应该，就是也不是，就是他们在讨论，就是所有节点每周在这里开会这件事情是不是有点中心化，或者有些新加的节点不在我们这个社群里面，他们在考虑这个问题。然后有种说法就是说，其实是更专注的节点，就是说会更关心社区事情的节点是更好的一种选项。大家应该习惯这样的氛围，或者说这样的文化，大家应该更积极的参与到社区的治理中间。大概是，当然也有另外Nation 的人在说，另外他对这个事情的担心。我大概听了这么多，刚才没有非常专心。如果有不对的，大家提出来。OK。
Thank you.
All right. So I'll move into the traditions. Let me share my screen here. And please just let me know when everyone can see.
You can see.
All right, great. So again, the traditions are primarily a mechanism to drive efficient meetings. And originally, when we first started thinking about this, we didn't have the on-chain sorts of tools that we needed to form consensus. So this was an attempt to be a stopgap so that we could be providing minutes to the community. Obviously the live stream is now working properly, and then also to provide structure for who might be accountable for those things. Originally, this was intended to just sort of look at the top 5 BPs in the last 24 hours and then assign roles that way. I imagine that, if this is even approved by everyone, we could probably do away with this once the on-chain voting mechanisms and those sorts of tools are in place. So again, this is really just supposed to be an interim stopgap measure. So I'm just going to scroll through here and just I'm assuming everyone has read this, so I'm not going to read this to everyone. But the key changes here are, I think that we're going to try to move towards maybe a once weekly meeting for security and other technical related items to be discussed. So that's where this is coming from. This second portion, around 2 times a week, I don't think this is needed anymore. If we're going to move more towards just okay, hey, let's all check in, make sure that our software is up to date, or if there's a security fix, or on an ad hoc basis if there's an emergency.
Can I stop you here, Rick, for a second? So, I think those scheduled meetings are just so that we don't fall into okay, if there's not been a meeting, there's no opportunities for Dan to jump in and talk to us. It's a regular schedule, just because we'll accumulate a few things, and sometimes we won't just decide to make a meeting if we don't have sufficient stuff. So it's sort of a pretext, because in reality, all of the security things, and if there's an upgrade, we should have a call as soon as possible. We can't wait for 1 week. So we'll maybe a sort of mechanism or a notification strategy to get that up, but it can't be that one. It can't be only that one. If it's the next day, that's fine. We can use that, but it can't be just that.
Good. Yeah, fair points, Alex. So, and maybe do we have the EOSIO forum ready to go? Because I'm just also thinking about sort of how to understand the consensus amongst the group.
Right now, it's in a test form. If people have tried and says it's just okay, maybe you can run a vote right now, and I could create a transaction to inject that in eosio.forum. And we could now have the authority on it to upgrade and all that. Do we want to have a vote on that? I mean, that might be useful. Do we have that in the schedule, in the agenda?
I don't believe it's in the agenda, but I think that, and maybe what we do is for the next call, we sort of...
No, I'll formulate the question in the chat right now and post your answers. If it's an overwhelming yes, I'm going to go ahead with that, and we can all sign when we're ready.
Okay. So I think the question is, first, perhaps, do we keep the Monday and Thursday call scheduled? I think just that first.
Well, we want to keep, okay. Well, what's the alternative propositions to go just to Thursday, right?
Correct.
Okay, let's ask it in 2 shots.
Can you translate that? Make sure it's all.
就是大家先做一个简单的投票，就是确定是不是就是把每周的这种2次开会从周1到周4变成周4这样，然后大家进行一个投票。
Actually, before we do the voting, I feel like I'm not against the frequency. I'm just feeling, especially today, looking at the agenda, I think majority of the items for today's call do not need to be discussed in the conf call like this. So I'm not really against the frequency. I'm actually against some of the items here.
Fair point.
Yeah, I agree. I think that maybe the traditions point and another one that's for organizing. Those are important, but the rest one, I don't think they're necessary.
But so one issue with the agenda is, at some point who has the editorial of that agenda, right? Like someone puts a point like, is it us, US Canada, because we're a host that we're supposed to remove and or decide what should be in there? So I actually like Ben Singman's proposition that every item should probably be seconded by someone. Like for instance, there were a few items that were added to the agenda, like the last three, I believe, that I don't even know who added them. But we still kept it there, right?
So if there's no name, we take them out. That would make sense. There's no name, so we need two names: one person and another person, at least.
I think that makes sense, but as you said, EOS Canada has been the host of this. Is that always going to be the same thing? We had talked about whoever's number one should host this, but that's not actually happened. And who on this call is from Bitfinex? Have they voiced any, we're willing to take that responsibility? So that there are things that we have talked about and not followed through on them. So that's more of my concern as far as, then what's the point, right? So that there are, it's more than just the agenda, managing the agenda and hosting. It's also kind of like, if we say we're going to do something, are we going to do it?
Yeah, so Alex, you just mentioned the two names. Yes, so what do you mean by the two names for the item?
I'm going to share my screen, look. So there's one name. You see that? There's another name. There's a name. There's Roger, Ben Sigmund. These have no name. We don't know who put that in. So one name, and we could have also, I can't write there, but seconded by another name. That's what I mean.
We can start from that.
Sorry?
We can start from that.
Yeah.
I think we should also not just have a second means it's included, but people should be able to kind of downvote and say this does not need to be included, because all it takes now is two people to agree to get something on the call.
Yeah, I think the way to move with this is to do it like the first thing that happens on the call is it was proposed, it was seconded, and then there's a vote to see whether we even accept the agenda that's been proposed. That's the first vote that could happen on a call.
I agree with that.
Great ideas. I have a suggestion, especially for the non-native, to help the non-native speakers who may have trouble keeping up. Whatever we decide here, can we please write those as instructions on top of the document so that people can better understand the procedure?
Definitely necessary.
Good point. So if we do it next time, maybe Matthew put a little paragraph explaining that process there, right?
Yeah, and we'll have it translated too. That so it's in 3 languages at least.
Okay, cool.
But just
how to protect against vandalization, because I could go in and impersonate another black producer as far as I know.
Well, we can use comments because your comments are tied to whatever Google account you've logged in with.
But if we're on this call and you see your name and it's not you, I hope you'll say so, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
So do you need a translation for this?
Sure.
我们刚讨论的就是这个，因为刚才在我们准备要投票嘛，就是说投是不是要保留周一和周四的 schedule， 然后我就是讲了一下我自己的感觉，就是其实因为 BP 都可以，就是说周一周四都可以参加这个会，就是这个频率不是问题，而是今天就是特别是今天这个会有9个 agenda 的 item， 感觉都不需要我们这么多人开这个会，而是一个这个不是就不一定是不重要，而是不必要在这个会上开的，所以我觉得是我们没有一个很好的一个机制去选择，就是今天要讲什么。那Alex 是 propose， 比如说一旦有人 propose 一个 topic， 必须有另外一个人 second， 也同意说这个 topic 可以需要被这个讨论，而不是任何一个人或者也没有放名字的就这么把这个 item 放出来了。Okay.
So do we want to propose a vote for 1 meeting a week first?
Second.
I'm gonna post a question. If it can be translated, I'm starting that with Q1. So answer with Q or A or Q1 : with your answer, right?
所以就是 Alex 会发到一个 Q1，它的就是是否要进行，就是把这个频率降成每周4进行，每周1次，然后这是 Q1，然后我们回答的时候就是 A1，然后有一个冒号，是或者不是这样。对，就是1或者2，这是 answer。
If we go down to 1, I think we'll need a way to, convene something in an emergency, because we could be satisfied with 2 a week. With
yeah, I'm interpreting this as being excluding emergencies, right?
Yes, I think that's how I put it in.
I know emergencies are ad hoc meetings. If you need them, you have to have them. That's entirely separate, in my opinion.
And we have Keybase. We have the contact list in Keybase, and we can tag everybody, and we can jump into a meeting as needed. Same thing with.
I think that's actually something that's coming up on the agenda, you guys. If you saw, that's what I proposed to talk about coming up here. So we're gonna cover some ideas on that.
Okay, great.
Right. So I'm looking at the answers here, and it's I think overwhelming 1 without having to count them. All right. Should we move then to the second question?
Which was?
We ended up rolling them both into one question. The first question is supposed to be go down to 1 meeting, and then should it be Monday or Thursday?
Is there a second question to actually agree to these traditions as far as like who hosts these meetings, who does the minutes, who does roll call? I mean, that's part of this tradition, and we haven't seen it followed yet.
I think part of the problem with why it wasn't followed is, there are just some teams that aren't as active, and we can't hold them to something that we vote to hold them to. The only thing we could do is theoretically say, hey, we as the top, 30 of the top 40, we agreed that we should follow this, and it's a public shaming almost. Like, it doesn't actually achieve anything. It's just a matter of how do we keep ourselves together and more organized. But that also goes against the depots. So it's there's a back and forth there.
Yeah, we're all here on this call. We can decide, whoever would be responsible for the next call, whoever's number 1 right now, they can say, yes, I'm willing to do that, or no, I'm not. And so I feel like we can nail this down to say, is this going to be always an EOS Canada hosted call, or is this going to be following our traditions?
I definitely think it should not always be, and it shouldn't always be a DAR taking notes. It shouldn't always be us hosting it. It should be a rolling thing.
No, what I'd like to hear is people say, I'll do it. And Luke, can I hear that from you? I'd love to see you run the next call.
I'd be happy to, but that's not according to our tradition. The number 1 is
still the tradition. I think the problem is if we say number 1, not everyone is equal in terms of facility. You talk well, or some people might not. If they're number 1 and they're not good at running a meeting, I don't want to be in that meeting. I want to be in a meeting well run, and I don't want.
I'm a really shy guy.
Sorry?
Yeah, I'm a really shy guy, but I can do it for next Monday.
Well, I don't want to.
No, I was kidding. I'm happy to do it. I was kidding. I'm happy to do it.
Great.
The counterpoint to that, Alex, is we don't want the people with the strongest personalities to be perceived as, having more influence or leadership or anything like that than others. And so that's just the
never be able to stop that. Strong personalities are going to shine. We want it or not, right? And we want efficient meeting. We just want to have the best way to have efficient meeting. Now, the side effect or projection of things we can't control, and have crappy meetings just because we don't want people to. I don't know. Okay,
I think we can move on. I think Paolo from Bitfinex agreed that the next meeting he would be chairing.
Perfect.
He's okay with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, sure.
Can I submit? We had a lot of question about readiness of issuing the EOS.forum. I'm going to put the question in because it was asked just before. And if we have an overall yes, we're going to go ahead with that before the next call or something.
If someone wants to translate that question, please.
Anyone second this?
Oh, sorry. Well, Rick proposed it, and I seconded it.
Yeah, I can't really second myself.
Okay.
An important question was asked. To be clear, we've just decided the next meeting will be Thursday, not Monday. Is that understood by everyone?
Yes.
Yes,
Great.
maybe we can translate that just to confirm.
Which question? The release of EOS forum?
I guess, sorry, there was two questions. One was relating to the, yes, it's confusing. The first question was just to confirm that the meetings are now on Thursdays, so the recurring Thursday. So that was be the first thing just to translate.
OK， 未来所有的 BP 会议呢，每周的 BP 会议都会发生在周四，像现在这个时候周四这样。
And then I believe the second question is being typed out about the EOS.io forum.
OK， EOS.io forum 呢，如果大家有关注的话，是一个能让 BP 去参与到有发一些确认的信息的，因为之前不是有时候要升级啊，什么都要发到 Keybase 上面，然后这个数数啊，什么都很麻烦。那EOS.io forum 呢是可以用我们的这个BP 的这个账号去直接发，它是一个 smart contract， 然后你可以发一个信息过去，你就验证你这个你 BP 做了某些事情，其实就是一个 message 的，就是一个论坛的一个形式。然后问题是我们需不需要创建一个在 EOS.io 下面这个账号下面叫做不是账号下面叫做 EOS.io .forum 这个账号，然后创建这个 smart contract。
It doesn't go as fast. If you have objection, to let them know. I mean, no one will force that on anyone.
这个账号。
It's good that we got a no, and also if we do say a no for an answer. So I think some of the no's are saying need to review. I think from those people, I'm not too sure if we've had, because that EOS.io forum has been out for a while. Has people not have time to review it?
Or maybe just James, do you want to explain maybe your no?
And Ben.
James and Ben. Sorry, I didn't see the Ben one.
My internet connectivity is really bad here, so I don't know if you guys can hear me. Just mostly that I was not aware it was ready. Probably just because it's been a holiday week here, so I've been busy.
Yeah.
So I didn't see the agenda. Like in the agenda, was there a link? Was there something? When I looked at the first agenda, I didn't look 12 hours ago, but I looked about 24 hours ago. And I didn't see like, oh, here's a link you can go review and look into this or anything.
Yeah, I think that if we're going to, my point about this is kind of what James said. If we're going to vote on something during a call, that it's on the agenda and then we have time to review it beforehand. You know, that voting is not just thrown in like this.
Yeah.
People started writing tools.
Maybe this came out of, and maybe I'm out of line, but it feels like this came out of left field to me. So that's why I voted no.
Okay. So there's no major objection. I mean, there's no foundational objection.
No. Just
that's fine.
Just I'm almost more of an abstain because, but.
Sorry, to be clear,
I'll say no because I feel if I feel that way, others must feel that way too.
Yeah. To be clear, the forum thing it's inside the blog producer tradition proposal, so it's there.
Yeah, the point is to get a mechanism to understand a voting mechanism on chain, essentially to understand the sentiment of block producers when we're thinking about these things. And so really, to me, this is a vote to move forward with using that tool. And we understand that this is going to evolve and get better over time.
All right.
Kedar, you say no, literally. If there's any object, I think there's an overwhelming yes, so I'm comfortable moving with that. But if there's a no that says something, with content, Kedar?
Yeah, I gave the same reason as Cyberglass. I just haven't reviewed the code yet. I wasn't aware of it too much.
Okay. Guys, I'm mindful of time, and it's already we're already 40 minutes in, and there's many points to cover. Are we good with this? Can we move forward?
Yes, let's go ahead.
And just for clarity's sake, we've all agreed to the traditions at this point, right? There's no objections to the traditions. We're kind of operating as if we are agreeing with these. I want to make sure that we come out of this with yes. If we mention the traditions, we're going to say, yeah, we agreed to that on this call. Is this correct?
So my perspective is I think we've made progress on agreeing to certain meeting times and sort of roles, but I would prefer to wait until the EOS IO forum mechanism is up and ready, and then we can actually have an on-chain, pseudo on-chain vote so that we can really understand the signals from all block producers.
I second that.
Sounds good. All right, thanks.
It was agreed that US Canada would not be leading the next meeting and would be Paolo. So yes. Yeah. Something else?
Yeah. So the next EOS New York will look to host and just coordinate the next meeting, because again, we're scheduling for Thursday, and even if there are changes amongst the rankings, we'll still plan to do that.
Great. All right. Let's move on to item 3. Which was the one that was proposed last week by Roger, and we didn't have time to cover.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I mean, basically, it sort of follows on from the block producer traditions, really, because when Alex suggested that we go off and look into this on the last call, we did exactly that and found inside the block producer traditions document, it said all block producer candidates are invited to join the call. So in effect, that work's kind of been done and it's there. So I suppose really our point hinges on the block producer traditions being accepted and upheld. So maybe we should, sort of withdraw that almost until block producer traditions have been agreed.
So, and that relies on the Keybase thing, right? It's always a question of vetting who has received the information and who hasn't. And I hope that we could have a small, stupid tool on EOS Forum that we could message, I don't know, use a key in there and sign an encrypted message to, send the Zoom link to the 52, and that's it.
Alex, sorry, but it wasn't about using Keybase or not. I was trying to get the point that the decision agreed that block producer candidates should have access to the call, and we should just focus on that first, and then worry about the mechanism for distributing the link, etc. On another, discussion. Or
just to clarify, Roger, was that the? I think there was somewhat of a cutoff right now of who was a paid block producer or standby block producer was able to be on the call and who weren't. Right now, there seemed to be that kind of linear divide. Is that what you're mentioning, or what you're talking about?
Yeah, so basically I'm using the vocabulary of block producer, as in your top 21, standby block producer, and then block producer candidates as the unpaid, as ourselves. So that's really what I'm referring to, is block producer candidates being given access to this call, and just to prevent any kind of concerns about the cabal or the collusion kind of issue.
I sent a message in the Zoom chat, says, should all block producer candidates have access to the Zoom call, and including unpaid, and maybe we set a threshold later on or something like that.
And there's a typo, it should be unpaid, not inpaid. It somewhat means the opposite, if not.
Yeah, I meant unpaid, please. Okay.
So just to expand on this, it's one thing to say that we're going to allow everyone in, which I agree we should. That wasn't the point I was trying to make last time, Roger. It's what is the mechanism for allowing those people in, but not having an influx of everyone else come in, which is what we saw before, and that's why we went to the Keybase. So it's one thing to say, let's do this. It's another thing to say, how we can do this.
And I think what was proposed was whoever had signed the reg producer could technically come in. I guess it doesn't really matter how many people come in, as long as the channel doesn't get flooded. And that's what we were experiencing pre-launch. People just start typing stuff and then voicing in. And that part was what was the issue, not necessarily the amount of people.
I understand that, and obviously because of the first item on the agenda, which was whether or not the call should be continued or in what format, then I thought, well, look, let's get the decision first. Should block producer candidates be invited to join the call or not? And assuming that the calls continue, block producer candidates are then invited to join the call, and then we'll do some more work on how we manage that technically, whether it's over a certain votes point. And don't waste your time on it now. We'll do something else on that if everybody just agrees that block producer candidates get access to the call, and then we'll have to find a way, propose another solution to perhaps have some sort of threshold of votes, or it could be tied into all sorts of other things, couldn't it? Like website, JSON file, and that kind of thing. But we can get to that later once we've just got through these first points, because it's so difficult for to talk about all those different things. Let's just deal with one little bit and move on.
I think right now, if we look in the chat, there was a majority yes, and all the no's pretty much mentioned a threshold of votes. So maybe we should just move on and do this in chat somewhere. But I think there is somewhat of an overwhelming majority to allow more people in. It's where exactly that line will be. There seems to be 2 or 3 things. Maybe we can talk about that in the governance channels or in the BP channels.
Yeah, and indeed there is a lot of confusion in the channels that I've seen amongst the block producer candidates who say, "Oh, we're not allowed in that call." So I think we need to just get that clear that block producer candidates are welcome, and I think probably now we're past launch and that whole issue is behind us of everybody trying to get on the call for the live go and no go vote. That probably you're not going to get a load of people on there, are you? I don't think so. Particularly if we combine this with the new ideas about getting stuff on the agenda and that kind of stuff, I'm sure that will all help. But as long as we've cleared that up, the block producer candidates who are interested in getting on the call for a valid reason are welcome. I think that's an important point to make. So that's
all right. Well, thank you, Roger, for this. I guess we've got our answer. So next step we'll be discussing the mechanism on the different channels to make it work.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right. Item 4, criteria agreed to among producers. Josh.
Sorry, I was muted. Do you guys see my screen? Okay, great. So what's going on right now is there's a lot of individual little witch hunts that come up every time a new BP comes in that doesn't have a JSON, doesn't have a website, no one can find their public endpoint. And I think if we want to uphold the current constitution, the current reg producer rules, we should create objective criteria on how do we verify these things, B, notify that team, and see how do we actually take our action. Because right now we're just not doing anything about it. And I agree personally that something should be done about it so that we impose, or try to impose, I should say, the rules that we've all agreed to uphold. So I basically went through the reg producer and pulled out the things that I verified as being objectively verifiable. And there are some things that are subjectively verifiable, and those might be a lot harder to reach consensus on. So I want to start with the low-hanging fruit if possible. So I laid them out, I copied them into this document, and part of the issue is, where is it on here? Within the wording of the document, some of these things are said to be as what block producers agree to. So we haven't made those agreements. I'm just trying to find where it says that. Here, according to criteria. So there are certain things that we need to just set up so that we can actually enact it. Because right now, we don't have we don't have that criteria finalized. So I don't know if people have had the chance to go through this yet or not. But first off, do we want to start working towards setting up a mechanism that we can follow and objectively verify these things?
Yeah, I think
I want to put a plug on this. So EOS Nation has been working on validating producers, kind of the set checklist. It's very objective. It just checks your bp.json. It's a very strict rule, so you might not get a full check mark. But if you want to look at your producer, I put it in the chat. It's validate.eosnation.io, and then producers. You might actually get a check, like a red check, because maybe your URL is not writing the proper schema. But if you don't have a bp.json, then it's like a very extreme fail. But we have been working on just validating the bp.json.
The hard part there, Danny?
Endpoints.
Sorry, I'm just going to want to jump in there. The hard part there is the bp.json was not an agreed to thing.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to set up. No one has agreed to that. So how do we hold them to that?
For sure.
I'm trying to catch that chicken and the egg there.
Yeah.
Which I agree, it's a great standard. We should agree to it, but we haven't yet. So we can't kick someone out for a rule that we created.
Exactly.
If we're designing criteria to kick rogue block producers out, this should come up before a community referendum, I think.
I second that.
Totally agree. That's why I want to stick to what we currently have in place through the reg producer and anything that's in code already.
Just a question, Josh. So this would effectively try to enshrine the bp.json requirement in the reg producer recording contract eventually?
That's separate. If that's what we want to do, we can do that. We have to wait for a voting mechanism. I'm looking at what do we currently have in the reg producer contract. Things like you need a URL. I forget the exact thing. Everything that I listed and highlighted in that document that I linked to. What are the objective things that we can look at? So, like, there's one new. I forget the name of the BP that just came in, and their URL is just a GoDaddy site. So they clearly do not have that URL. I don't think we should use that to say, hey, let's kick these guys out. I think we should try to contact them. And we need to predefine, here, we're going to contact you in these 3 locations. And if you have not given us those 3 locations, well, then we can't contact you. We give them a period of time, let's say 24 hours to respond. If no response is had, then we could call the 2/3 plus 1 vote to sign them out. And then basically it's up to them to come back to us and say, hey, we've updated. We are now in compliance with the BP agreement. This shouldn't be seen as a way to get rid of people, but to encourage people to follow the rules that we are currently trying to abide by.
Right. Sorry, I wasn't trying to imply that. I was just trying to understand the order of operations here, because it would seem like the only enforcement mechanism of this would be to amend the reg producer Ricardian contract on chain to include this requirement. And I recognize you're trying to just sort of get the first part here, but really, and I think Roman is suggesting this as well, this needs to go to referendum, and this needs to be agreed to by the community so that we can hold BPs accountable for their compliance requirements.
Well, no, we already can hold people we can hold them accountable based on the criteria we already have. What I was saying with the BP JSON is if we want to add new requirements, that for sure has to go to a vote, because that is now a change.
Thank you.
Well, one thought I had on this is that essentially we already have the tools to say what we agree on. Like, we can do a 2/3 plus 1 right now. We can do a proposed transaction to kick someone out, and that's all on chain. And that I think the more we can just do these things on chain, the more it's just clarified by the systems we already have in place. And as far as what BPs agree to, I think the BP JSON is an excellent example of kind of like an order out of chaos situation where we're almost unanimously agreeing to do this because it's a good idea. I would propose that that's 2/3 plus 1 and then some. And so there are certain traditions, certain things that we're going to do where it's if someone's not doing it, they should have, in my opinion, a good reason that we should all listen to and say, oh, okay, we get why you're not doing it. If they're not doing it because they're just not doing it, and there's no good reason, I feel like that it is on us to highlight that and say, hey, why are people voting for this block producer that isn't kind of playing ball with everyone else? Is there a reason? So I guess I'm a little concerned when we start structuring things a little too tightly to say we have to follow these specific procedures, because we're going to potentially choke off this order out of chaos thing. That's a beautiful thing. We get serendipitous value out of just something showing up that we all start doing because it's a good idea.
It looks like a lot of BPs are missing their country. Is there a reason why the country is missing on the reg producer? Out of the top 21, only 8 have a country.
There's no country on reg producer. That's in bp.json.
No, there is the
location.
The location is useless and not used in anything. And the value, we don't
it
even know what it is.
It is used extensively on the EOS portal. It's used everywhere.
The location?
Yeah.
I hope not, because there's not even a meaning attached.
No, I've sent you a link. There is a meaning attached.
Okay, let's make sure we don't degrade into discussing the BPJSON, but that might be a great technical thing that we as BPs should coordinate on as our BPJSON format. That would be a good agenda item for next time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Just about the validate portal that US Nation put in, I have been noticed that you cannot connect to my node peer-to-peer port, and that's why I have over 300 connections attached to it. And maybe that method of verifying if my node is up, it's technically not right, because if I have an overloaded full node and you cannot connect, so people will think that I don't have a full node because you cannot connect because I'm over the actual limit. And then I think you need to change that. So
any feedback, just bring it. Any feedback, bring it to us. I mean, this is just an internal tool for us to check my own bp.json. And this
but once you start deploying that to the world, people will start seeing, oh, here doesn't have a P2P node.
We can
agree with you.
That's really bad.
Yeah, we could look into making some of those things, like if your peer-to-peer node is maxed out, we can make sure that we can allow that, because it still connects. It's a maxed out node. But definitely bring any feedback to us. This was an internal tool that we've been working on since pretty much inception. I think
with you or another guy from BPs, we try to give you feedback, but the feedback didn't reach anyone, I think, because you're still using the same standards. So, for example, we told you guys that we change our keys quite often. So, for example, the producer key that's in the JSON is not going to be the same one that we have in our producer all the time. So, that's one problem, or the thing with the ports.
Hey, you guys, there's a lot of issues with this tool, and this is totally off the topic if we get deeper down this. So can I propose that we keep moving on?
Yeah, those chats can be on Keybase or Telegram. Just send us some emails or whatnot. That's definitely off topic of this discussion for sure.
Yeah, it's off topic, but part of it is going to be like for something like the rule that we have to provide a public endpoint. How do we define what's public? Does it mean it's out there, or does it mean it's published as well? It needs to provide up to 100 connections. So how do we verify that? And how do we independently verify that? Because if we're going to try and kick someone off of being a producer because they're not meeting that criteria, we better have a damn good reason. We got to be able to back that up as well. That's what I'm trying to get to, because there's been a lot of witch hunts where someone goes, hey, I can't find their website, I can't find their endpoint. And then I ask, okay, what did you do to find it? They said, oh, I tried to Google for it. That was an answer I got. So that's not an answer that we should be actionable.
So Josh, what I would propose is maybe we could form a committee to take this on and come back to the group.
Totally agree.
So where can people sign up? Where can people sign up to be on that committee?
How about this? If 3 people want to raise their hand, I'll make a Telegram group, and then I see me, I see Eve. Anyone else?
How about you repost this so that non-native speakers can read it, put it in Telegram, WeChat, and put the call out that way? Because you guys are moving really fast and making decisions sort of on the fly. I'm sure that everyone's not keeping up.
Yeah, well, I'm not trying to make a decision. I'm trying to say let's make a place where, or 3 people. So far I see me, Eve, and Ben. The proposals have already been linked out. And Ross from EOSphere. We're going to make a Telegram group. And if people want to join in, please reach out to one of those 4. I'll type those names in the chat right now. And if we get that quick translation, nothing is being decided, Roman. It's just a matter of we're going to set up how do we work towards deciding towards setting something up.
But sorry, Josh, but I'm not following you. Like, what do you need to do? Like, we have the Constitution that tell us what things are important and what are the responsibilities of a blog producer. Why we need more?
I'm not saying we need more. I'm saying the ones that we have aren't currently being enforced. So if we want to enforce them, we need to actually set up like we're not using them. So we should start to use them. If people keep complaining, this BP should not be there, this BP should not be there, and those are not actionable items. We need to create actionable items there. We're just going in circles. We're just a witch hunt every time. And then, maybe they get voted out and it's not a big deal anytime for now until they get voted back in. So right now we're just seeing this constant flood being going around in the community.
Yeah, I think like I'm echoing with Luke's idea. Like we just need to do third plus one. If somebody motion to unregister that particular BP and there's enough people to third plus one that did it, and he's out, right?
But do you want to do that? Would you want to sign that proposal if there's no evidence, and how do we define what that evidence is?
The person who proposed to do that will provide the evidence, and individually, the top 21 will make the decision on their own.
Yeah, case by case. Like we don't need a committee do the witch hunt for us. Like case by case, we can propose this in a call and give the +1.
Sorry, just to confirm what I'm hearing, Defeng and Igor, Mini, what you're saying is when a new block producer comes in and for X period of time, the top 21 feel as though this block producer should not be in that group of 21, 15 people would get together and kick the other person out on a case by case? I'm just asking to confirm that's what's being proposed right now?
Well, that is what Josh is trying to get to, right? He's trying to figure out the particular rules and all those that we could use and judge if somebody is abiding the Constitution. And yeah, but I don't think we need. I think the Constitution is already in there. It's already in there. So anybody who thinks that one particular, top 21 is not following something, you can just motion it. You can write out a proposal, send it to the group. If 15 of the top 21 producers agree with that, then they can do unregistered, right?
So what I propose now, just because we've taken 20 minutes on this, is that this can be a thing that happens. And also, Josh, I would propose if you want to do a subcommittee for people to discuss this, go ahead and do that as well. And basically we just move on.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yeah, one thing we should agree to or try to come up with an agreement is there's no time limit. Once a BP comes into play and they're not producing blocks, or even if it's a BP who has been producing blocks and their nodes go down, what is that period of time before we take them out of rotation? There is no number. The only number that's referenced anywhere is in the white paper, 24 hours, but that's not in any code or anything like that. Some people say, hey, this guy wasn't producing blocks for an hour, let's get rid of them, or 6 hours, let's get rid of them. The only thing that references is as an agreement that we come to, so we should come to that agreement. Otherwise, it's subjective each time.
But this is not on chain, so the agreement will be on the call. I would prefer personally to treat these cases case by case, and when we have like on-chain tools, we can try to define time limit. But until we don't put that on chain, I will do it otherwise.
Let's pause for a translation at a minimum here, guys.
Hey, we were just wondering that the issue that you're talking right now is related to the concept as something as a dispute. Let's say you decide there is a block producer that does not qualify to be a block producer, and you guys think that he has to be, or it has to be moved. Anyway, has to be gone. It is in some sort of a dispute, and by deciding it's among us. That is, I think it does not according to the Constitution, which requires any related to this Constitution shall be resolved by arbitration. And the arbitrator later decides what kind of requirements, what the time limit, what blah, 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 and everything that is according to what they decide to is relevant and to consider. So what I'm thinking right now, this whole conversation, I think is supposed to be referred to the arbitration.
So arbitration is supposed to be a way of for lack of a better term, it's a way of covering our ass. It's not that they are the ones who make the rules. It's actually the block producers who enact an arbitration based on their opinion. It's a finding. It's a ruling. It's not a hard fast rule, so to speak. And 15 of 21 can do something actually without arbitration. That's part of the power. But the whole thing is, and why I wanted to make this very objective, is because if we do something with a 15 of 21 power, we should be able to really, protect why we did that. Why did we make that decision?
There's a slightly mistake. I slightly do not agree with it, because what you're saying, two parts of the 3M plus something is not written in the Constitution, and what is written in the Constitution is arbitration. So what the proposal, what you're saying right now is the proposal is the majority decision, which I understand is not written in the Constitution.
It's written in the reg producer contract that we all signed to even get to the Constitution. That's actually the first way you interact with the chain. You're agreeing to the reg producer.
Sorry. This shouldn't be an education on the Constitution or the reg producer, right? You should know that already. And so if you have questions about that, let's take this outside of this call.
Thank you.
Okay.
I suggest that we move to the next agenda item or postpone this call, seeing as it's past 10. Or sorry, past.
Did we have a translation of the last conversation though?
Good point, Ben.
刚才讨论的比较久的是关于这个，当有一个新的 BP 进来，然后它reproduce 之后呢，它没有提供 reproduce 下面 recording contract 里面需要它提供的东西，比如说一个 public endpoint 比如说一个网站比如说就这一系列的东西，需要是它发了一个这个 Word doc 上面写出来。那如果它没有提供这些东西的话，那作为这个前21的作为 BP 们，我们可以怎么样去联系到这个人？然后如果一直联系不上的话，我们是否能去 unregister 这个 producer？因为他没有进到 record 他那个注册他 producer 时同意的 recording contract 上面写的东西。刚才讨论的比较久，但我们还没有一个最终的一个结果但是貌似大家还是对这个 reproducer 那个 moment 你同意的这个东西我们能采取什么样的决定还没有一个定论但是 Josh 和几个人会 form 一个小的 committee 然后会提出一个 proposal 出来。对，
好的。
All right, everyone. It's past 10 already. Matthew had to jump off the call, so I'll just fill in for him. So it seems like we'll get to the next things in the next meeting.
Hey, let's do a quick announcement of the fraud because that's ongoing and a little time critical. 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Anyone else have any objection? Or if you have an objection, just please jump off because this is actually probably pretty important actually.
So there seems to be an ongoing fraud in China. It's a Ponzi scheme. They're using the names and faces of Crypto Lions team members and the account Crypto Lions 2. It seems like a standard Ponzi scheme. It seems like the amount of money that filtered through there has been maybe as high as 80,000 EOS tokens. So it's hard to say for sure because a lot of them are moving in a circle. And I want to thank I Am EOS for helping me get the word out. EOS Fish has put me in touch with a lot of people in China, and a lot of people know that this is happening, including the big exchanges. My ask now is for everyone, especially the people in the Chinese community, to just be aware of this, look into it, and help get the word out that Crypto Lions 2 is a fraudulent account. This is all going to ECAF. I think a lot of the victims of this fraud will have trouble submitting a claim to ECAF. So there's a lot of room to help people do that, identify victims, help them collect information and submit it. That's all. I can answer any quick questions.
Yeah,
offline.
do you have like a short blurb in Chinese about this? We can have all the Chinese VPs to help connect their community of people.
It's I am EOS tweeted about it, and it's also on top of the Crypto Lions website. I'm fixing the translation now. CryptoLions.io.
Okay, so I'm EOS already thinking about it. Okay, I'll find it. I'll send it to EOS agent. And I'll also relay it to email. We can also send it to the community.
Excellent. So I guess we'll see everyone back here next Thursday. Again, just to recap, Paolo from BitFinex will be hosting the call. I believe it was EOS New York. Will be helping to run it with them as well and taking notes. And then the agenda, again, please, we're going to try and get that translated. Please post your suggested agenda topic. Someone should second it. But if you disagree with it being discussed in these calls, please voice that as well through your comment. This way we can make sure to keep these calls very pointed and very focused.
And Josh, please write those instructions on top of the document.
Yeah, we'll get them translated into 3 languages.
Thank you.
Great.
And Esperanto. Hey, thank you. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.